Hello, welcome, and thanks for joining us to help choose home when care is needed, a podcast all about the benefits, value, and safety of receiving care and services in the one place that feels most comfortable, wherever it is that the person needing care calls home. I'm your host, Marilee Orsini, and I've been involved in healthcare at home since 1981. Before we meet today's guest, a brief thank you to our sponsors and partners, the National Association for Home Care and Hospice, Access, and CoreCute. Today's episode is number 15 of Season 4. Our guest today is Carla Davis, Senior Vice President, Hospice Operations, the LHC Group. I think you will appreciate the perspective that Carla brings to the care at home industry, as she has been active for 30 years now in various hospice organizations in a variety of roles. Please help me, won't you, and welcome Carla Davis to Help Choose Home. First, Carla, let me just say thank you so much for being my guest today, and welcome to Help Choose Home.
Well, I'm honored to be the last podcast of this very important series to help give consumers the information they need to make the right decision for themselves and for their family.
Well, you know, I can't think of anyone better than you that I would like to interview for this very last podcast, because your almost entire professional career has been spent in the care at home industry, and most of it in the hospice industry.
That's right. When I was 19, I was in a class at Davidson College, and I learned how people were experiencing end-of-life care at that time in the early 90s, and how expensive that was, and about the futility of the care that people were experiencing and unfortunately dying behind curtains and hospitals, and not with the people that they love, and surrounded by the things and the animals and the food and, you know, everything that brings them comfort. And so I knew there had to be a better answer, and I had no idea about this thing called hospice. But I can tell you, the minute I was home for Thanksgiving break and had decided to write my paper for that class on end-of-life care and terminal care, but again, didn't know that this amazing benefit was out there, and was sitting on my bed during Thanksgiving break and learned about this thing called hospice. And I knew at that point that I wanted to spend the rest of my life getting care to those at the end of theirs.
That is a wonderful story. So talk to me about what you have learned from that day to now that you think would be the most important thing for a consumer to hear.
Yeah, well, you know, we had some amazing leaders in our country who had the vision to build a hospice benefit as a part of the Medicare benefit. The concept of hospice really originated in England with Dame Cicely Saunders, and came to America in the 70s, and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and all of that. But we had some leaders, and they say it was one of the last bipartisan efforts with President Carter and Senator Dole at the time, and, you know, get a hospice benefit enacted in the early 80s. And we're actually celebrating the 40th year this next year of the passing of that benefit. And so what I've learned since then is that people have a misperception of what hospice is and who can qualify for it and who it can benefit. And they have fear around the actual benefit. But when they get it, they wish they had it earlier, and almost to a person are extremely satisfied with the care that they receive, and wish they had known about all of the services and all of the help and all of the support and all of the sharing of the burden that this time in life can bring. They wish they had, you know, had access to that earlier. And so I really have dedicated my life to overcoming those barriers so that people at the end of life could get access to the care that they need and deserve. And sometimes those barriers are real, and sometimes those barriers are just perceived. But either way, they impede the dying from getting the care. And so that really has been my life's mission.
Well, I would like to talk about those barriers because I think I know some of them, but let's put a scenario together where you have a mother who is terminally ill and has exhausted all the possibilities. And talk to me about the barriers that her 3 adult children who are trying to give her advice, the barriers that they're feeling and that they're putting in place for her.
Well, I think it's a great question. I mean, first of all, the 3 children are coming from different places and different experiences and different perceptions of what is best for their mom, but they all want what's best for mom. You know, they don't want mom to give up. They don't want generally mom to, have to go in and out of the hospital, but they also don't want to say that this is it, because who knows when this is it. And as we were just discussing, you don't know exactly when your time is. The mom doesn't want her children to think that she's given up on herself and wants to be perceived by the children to be doing everything she can and being the fighter. And so you have all these struggles. And I think sometimes people feel like you have to have made all of those decisions prior to getting access to care. You have to have, as you said, tried everything prior to getting access to care. And that's really not how the benefit is designed. The benefit is comprehensive and really covers everything that regular Medicare covers except for curative care. So, of course, if the patient was receiving care that was going to cure them or extend their prognosis beyond 6 months, they would not be eligible for hospice, because that is the sole eligibility guideline, is a 6 month or less prognosis. But that doesn't mean that you have to say you're not going to go to the hospital anymore. That doesn't mean that you have to stop seeing your doctor. That doesn't mean that you have to be homebound and stay in your house and not do the things that you're able to do that bring you joy and meaning in your life. So that there are a lot of misunderstandings out there about what has to happen for you to get care. And really, all that is required is that you have a prognosis of 6 months or less, and that you want the help, and that you understand that hospice is focused on comfort and not cure. And so, it's really helping to find out what mom needs. And that is very individualized to that person and what's important to her. And then helping to have her and her 3 children from very different perspectives understand how together we can put together a comprehensive plan of care that's individualized to her needs and help her achieve that, as much of that as possible. So, it's hard to name, just a couple of barriers because different people experience them. But I think that the number one thing that people wrongly believe about hospice, which impedes people from getting access to care, period, and it impedes people or, prohibits them from getting it when they truly are eligible, is this concept that they have to be ready to die and to have stopped everything in order to get the care that they need and deserve. And that's not what hospice is. Hospice is about living. It's about preparing you and your family for what is happening and what is going to happen. And it's not a prerequisite that you be ready prior to our care. In fact, that is exactly what our care is about. And that's the reason that we have doctors and nurses, but also social workers and chaplains and counselors and aides, is that we're here as an interdisciplinary team to help you and the people that you love and that love you prepare for what's happening, not require that you be ready prior to getting the care that you need.
Well, it does not surprise me that you articulated that so very, very well. Thank you for that. Let's talk about the actual benefit. Now, if someone's on Medicare and they decide they want to get off of Medicare and go on to hospice, talk to me about the specific benefits. You mentioned the interdisciplinary team, but what kinds of services are available to someone on hospice that are not available to someone who is getting just regular Medicare home health services?
Sure. And it's actually a misperception that you have to get off of Medicare to get onto hospice, and they're not mutually exclusive. So when you elect the hospice Medicare benefit, you are waiving your rights to regular Medicare services for those things that hospice is going to take care of. So things that are related to your terminal prognosis, but you're not waiving your rights to regular Medicare services for things that are not related to your hospice, or the services of your attending physician who you've been going to for a long time. And I'll just give you an example of that, and then I'll get into the actual hospice benefit and some of the things that are covered there that aren't covered in regular Medicare. But my father died 3 years ago on hospice. My father was a diabetic, and he was hospice eligible due to his COPD. He had smoked for 40 years and was in the last phase of his life related to COPD. But because of his diabetes, he had, shoes that were ordered by a podiatrist. And those shoes were still covered under regular Medicare, and the services of the podiatrist were still covered under regular Medicare. And that was separate from his hospice covered benefits. But in terms of the hospice covered services, as I described earlier, you have the benefit of an entire interdisciplinary team, and that's less restrictively guided by regulations than other benefits like the home health benefit. We have the freedom to build a plan of care around what it is that you need and your family needs. And as those needs change, we can go up or down with the services. So it may be that you had been in the hospital for 3 weeks prior to our admission, and so your condition had gotten pretty frail. And so that first week or two, you need us to have a nurse out there every day and an aide out there every day. But as you rebuild and get acclimated to home and the new bed and the oxygen and all those things, you may not need that anymore. And so then we can decrease our services or increase our services according to how your needs change. And they will change over time. All of our needs change over time. But the beautiful part of the hospice benefit, I think, is also the psychosocial and the spiritual components of the support to not just the patient who may or may not be grappling with what is happening, but also to support the family through that. Just in my experience, the patient usually knows. I mean, they know themselves, they know their body, if they are cognizant. And, they may be strong or trying to be strong for their family. It's really helping to support the family to get them ready. I can remember back when my grandmother was facing the end of her life, Miss Polly, and over one of the holidays before her death, she had all of us put sticky notes on the furniture that we wanted. She had her sitter get her dress dry cleaned and told her that she wanted these shoes and these pearls when she was buried. But we weren't talking about it, right? It wasn't us that were ready. We were in complete denial about it. But Miss Polly picked out her outfit to be buried in and made sure her furniture had at the home of the family member that wanted it. And I find that to be true more times than not. The other parts of the benefit, and in addition to the disciplines, it covers most everything that regular Medicare covers and then some. So it covers medications, it covers medical supplies, it covers medical equipment that you might need. And it doesn't fall under the regular restrictive rules of traditional Medicare. So hospice has the freedom, as long as the physician believes the patient needs these services are medically reasonable and necessary, to create a care plan of people visiting and helping to support you, but also through all the items that you might need to be able to be comfortable in your own home or wherever you call home. We haven't really talked about that, but hospice is a benefit that allows you to live wherever you want to live. So if it is an assisted living or a retirement home like my father, or the house that you're going to be building over the next 2 years, hospice will meet you where you are. We've even served some homeless patients because they deserve access to care too.
The whole concept of end of life is such a scary concept, I think. Is there a way in this country that we could make it less scary?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion about that recently, and I think that where we're headed in the future to help solve that part of the American live till you die and, have no preparation for it is to really build a robust palliative care continuum that maybe doesn't even use the word hospice anymore, but, really helps patients get and transition through serious illness and get the level of care that they need at the time that they need it. And potentially that's not going to be defined in the future by prognosis, but rather by the seriousness of your illness and the needs that you have, which may be 3 years before your death or maybe 3 days before your death, so that the time is less relevant than what you actually need. And I look forward to a day when there is more of a continuum of care in America and we're less siloed and segmented and without really seamless handoffs. And I think that we're in a position today to actually create that structure. And if there was anything that was positive about the last 18 months during COVID, it is this. I think that there has been on both the consumer side as well as the provider and the government side, an awareness that we have to do a better job of preparing for, talking about, and caring for people at the end of life. And even in my own family, as we were dealing with COVID and my family, myself included, did get COVID, fortunately, everyone survived. We had conversations we should have had years ago. And I think that there's a desire and a willingness to finally go there from a consumer perspective, but there's also a desire and an understanding that we must go there and build a benefit structure that allows for better care for people facing serious illness.
Well, I think that is the perfect place to end, because I think looking forward to the future that is better, and also that includes complete scope of life from birth to death in our care situation is a very hopeful and positive outlook. And I thank you for that very much. Carla, I generally have a question at the end, and that is there anything I did not ask you thought I was going to ask you, or something that you've not said that you would like to say to close out this very last podcast?
Well, I would just like to say to you, a huge thank you for all of the work that you've put into not just this podcast, but your life's work to help influence care in the home and to help more people get care in the home. And I congratulate you on your upcoming retirement, and I'm grateful for you and your service.
Thank you. And I would like to say I am so pleased that you are now in a situation where I think you have the potential to make a huge difference in care delivery in America. And I'm looking forward to watching your progress. So thank you again very much for today. And I hope we don't lose touch with each other.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening today, and a special thanks to our sponsors and partners, National Association for Home Care and Hospice, Access, and CoreCute. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to our podcast and take the time to leave a review on Apple Podcast. We are now also on Spotify and most other places where you find podcasts. Like and follow us on social media and join us. Want you to spread the word and help choose home when care is needed.